Hi everyone. In the last two blogs we had a look at the modeling of a mass in place in a Revit model, and then how we could apply a pattern-based adaptive family onto those divided surfaces. And we saw that in the case of the revolve, that the parameterization worked without a hitch, and in the case of the loft that it didn't. So in this case I'm now also wanting to differentiate between why you would want to choose to model something in place, or why it would be better to model something within a family. And to illustrate that, I'm also going to use the loft in this family. So I just created two levels. One is at 40 meters, the other one is at 0, to be the same as the other two examples. And then we once again need to do a revolution. So we are going to say, if we look at this, if we look from the top, this plane over there is called center, front and back. So I'm going to draw from the south elevation. I'm going to set the work plane to center, front and back. Just make sure that it's set to that. And then I can quickly sketch the profile that we need. Something from here to there. We're going to make that 30,000 going horizontally. From the top here, that's going to be 40,000. And then we just need to close that up onto that endpoint. We need one more line, and so that's going to be our axis of rotation. Let's see if we can revolve this and that, those two, create the solid form. There we can see the revolve. We can also parameterize this element. If we edit the profile, there we can see our profile. We can use dimensions to dimension to that corner. We can choose that dimension, create or map it onto a parameter. That's going to be the base radius. And we can make it into an instance if we want, type or instance, however you choose. Let's create one for the top radius. Map that onto top radius. Also instance parameter. Let's accept that. Okay, so the result of that is if we change the top radius, if we change the base radius, and the shape will adapt. The next thing is that we've got two adaptive components there, which are pattern based. Right, so having a look at our shape, you can choose that face, divide the surface, and then map one of them above. That's the normal one. And again, just like within the project, you can flip the component should you wish. So we'll just put the mullions on the inside as opposed to the outside. We'll finish up with the other face. Divide the surface. And then have the component as it should be. Alright. Now, the big difference over here, you can of course now load this into a project. Right? And then you can manipulate it exactly the same as what something that would have been modeled in place. However, here's a difference for you. Let's suppose that you've got some other component at the top over here, where, let me zoom out a bit, if I press tab, you'll see that I can tab onto one of those components. Let me isolate it for you temporarily. So here's one of those components. Let's have a look, side view at that component. Right? Now notice what happens. If you select that component, you can switch it out onto a different type of component. Right? So in this one there's no top mullion. You can switch that out. And it's flipped around. So you're able to switch out one of or more of the components based on which one you've selected. Right? So there's one of them. That might represent one of many scenarios. Could be on a corner of a square building, at the top of a shape like this, or at the base of a shape like that. So it's a very powerful way. In comparison, have a look at the models that we had within our project. Can we tab onto one of these components? And the answer is yes. And after we've tabbed onto one of these components, we can do nothing with it. There's no way that I know of that you can actually go and change out that individual panel onto something else. Right? So for that reason alone, I would make the assertion that you should be using a family, that a loadable family that contains the mass component that you would like to model within your project. So I think that would be the strategy for you. If, like me, you need to model masses with curtain panels and so forth, it obviously depends on the situation, but in general, I would default to using a family that you can load into one of the projects. I'm going to load it into the loft. That's the one that originally didn't work parametrically. Here we can see it's generated. Of course, in this mode, there we can select that individual panel, and again, we can't switch that out. Right. But we can do so if we edit the family and we go into the family. Then we can switch the individual components out, and that's the big difference between the two methods. And because we've parameterized the family itself, you'll find that you'll be able to change the size and shape based on the parameters that you've created for the family. So, until next time, enjoy Revit.